pressure was unbearable. If she condemned him now, half the court would call it injustice. If she accepted him, she would be seen as weak, betraying the very laws she swore to uphold. Her empire demanded strength. Her heart whispered doubt, and the human's eyes locked on hers, steady and fearless, refusing to let her escape. For the first time in her reign, Princess Lyra felt cornered, not by armies, not by rivals, but by truth itself. Her lips trembled before she forced them still. She raised her voice sharp as a blade. "The trial is complete. The court will decide at dawn." The nobles roared in protest and approval, their voices clashing like war. Guards moved to hold back the most furious. Daniel stood calm, never breaking her gaze. "At dawn, princess, you will have to choose tradition or truth. Which one do you fear more?" Her chest tightened painfully. She turned away, hiding the storm in her eyes. But as she walked back to her throne, one thought echoed louder than all the nobles' cries. Why does this human's truth feel more unshakable than all the stars in the sky? The great hall stood restless. Nobles hissed, tails lashed, and voices clashed like storms. The trial was over, yet no verdict had been given. The princess had delayed judgment until dawn, but the court could feel her hesitation. Daniel Reese, the lone human, stood calm among the chaos. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed steady. He knew this was the most dangerous moment. The test was not only about biology or culture, it had become about truth itself. And Princess Lyra, golden-eyed and proud, sat high on her throne with fire in her chest. She had never been cornered like this. Her people demanded strength. But that human, he had shown strength of a different kind, and now her empire watched her every move. When the suns rose, light poured through the crystal ceiling. The nobles returned silent this time, their earlier anger cooled into sharp expectation. Lyra rose from her throne. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "The trial is complete. The court demanded proof. The human has spoken. Now I must give judgment." Daniel met her gaze. He gave no bow, no fear, only quiet confidence. The princess's tail flicked once behind her. She looked at him long, as if searching for weakness, but found only the unshaken steadiness of his eyes. At last she spoke, her voice softer than before. "All my life I was taught that truth comes only from the stars, that strength is shown only by crushing the weak, that loyalty is chained only to blood. Yet here stands a human, unbowed, who dares to defy the stars." The nobles hissed in shock. Never had she questioned the laws aloud. She stepped down from her throne. Every eye followed her as she walked slowly toward Daniel. "When I challenged you," she said, her voice tight, "I wanted to expose your lies. I wanted to humiliate your kind before the galaxy. But instead," she stopped only a few steps from him, golden fire meeting human steel. "Instead, I find myself wondering if I was the one afraid of truth." A ripple of whispers moved through the hall. Daniel spoke quietly. "You are not afraid of truth, princess. You are afraid of what it will change." Her chest tightened. She hated that he was right. Yet she also felt relief that someone could see her fear and not despise her for it. Lyra raised her voice so all could hear. "The human has passed the trial. His words hold strength equal to our law. He will not be condemned." The hall erupted in cries of shock. Some nobles slammed their tails in outrage, others shouted in disbelief, but none dared to challenge her directly. Then, in a moment that silenced the galaxy, Princess Lyra did the unthinkable. She dropped to one knee before Daniel. Gasps filled the hall like thunder. She looked up at him, her golden eyes burning. "I challenged you to break you. Instead, I found someone who cannot be broken. You carry truth not as a weapon, but as a flame. And Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. "I cannot help but respect that flame." The nobles roared in protest. "The princess kneels to a human? This breaks all tradition. Is this weakness or something greater?" Lyra ignored them. For the first time in her reign, she ignored the chains of expectation. She did not kneel as weakness. She knelt as acknowledgement. Daniel bent down slightly, his voice low so only she could hear. "Princess, you don't need to kneel. You've already proven your strength." But Lyra shook her head. "No, human. Strength is not only standing above. It is also knowing when to bow to truth. In that moment, something shifted between them. The challenge had begun as a trap, but it ended as the beginning of something more dangerous and more powerful. The court would gossip for years about that morning, about the alien princess who bowed to a human envoy. But neither she nor Daniel cared, for deep inside, Kalyra knew her challenge had not been about biology alone. It had been her test, not of him, but of herself, and the truth she feared had already taken root in her heart. The hall slowly emptied, but whispers lingered like smoke. War leaders muttered of rebellion, priests whispered of prophecy. Some feared the princess had betrayed them. Others wondered if a new age had begun. Kalyra returned to her throne, but her eyes never left Daniel, and as the human envoy prepared to leave the chamber, she called out, her voice steady, yet filled with hidden fire. "This trial is over, but our story has only begun." Daniel paused at the door, then smiled faintly. "Then I'll be ready, princess, whatever comes next." The chamber echoed with silence. The galaxy would never be the same again. The rings folded back into the floor. He looked up at the princess one last time. Her golden eyes were unreadable, but for the first time, he thought he saw a flicker of something behind them. Curiosity, and that was more dangerous than anger, because curiosity meant she might not only want to break him, she might want to understand him, and that, Daniel thought, was where the real battle would begin. The chamber was still buzzing from the machine's results. The nobles whispered fiercely among themselves. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others hissed angrily, and a few looked nervous, as if their world had been cracked open. For thousands of years, every species they knew had lived by cycles, bound to the rhythm of the stars. Yet here was a human, standing calm and steady, whose body defied everything they believed. Princess Kalyra raised her hand and silence returned. Her golden eyes burned with fury, but deep inside, something else stirred. She would not admit it, not even to herself, but doubt had touched her heart. "Enough," she declared. "Machines can be tricked, numbers can be twisted. I will not allow one anomaly to stain our traditions." She turned toward the nobles, her robes sweeping the floor. "We will move to the cultural trial. Let him prove not only with his body but with his spirit. If he fails, then all will see the truth, that humans are liars and chaos is their only nature." The nobles roared in approval, slamming their tails against the marble. The sound echoed like thunder. Daniel Reese stood tall at the center of the chamber. His dark eyes scanned the crowd, then settled on the princess. He could see her pride. He could see her anger. But behind both he saw a question she refused to speak aloud. He gave a small smile. "Your Highness, you can test me however you want. You can call me a liar, a mistake, even an abomination. But truth does not bend to your will. It simply is." The words carried through the hall, sharp as blades. Some nobles gasped, others growled in anger. No one dared speak to the princess in such a way. Kalyra's jaw tightened. She stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. "You speak boldly for a man standing in the jaws of my empire. Do you not fear what happens if you fail?" Daniel met her gaze without flinching. "I fear nothing except silence. If I do not speak for my people, then who will?" The nobles shifted uneasily. They had expected fear. They had expected the human to bow, to tremble. Instead, he stood unbroken, his words sharp enough to pierce their pride. A tall noble with crimson skin rose from his seat. His voice boomed across the chamber. "Princess, why waste time? The test is clear. The human has no cycle. He is an insult to the stars. End this farce now." Others shouted in agreement, but some stayed silent, their eyes fixed on Daniel with curiosity. Daniel turned toward the crimson noble. "You call me an insult? But tell me, what is an insult? To obey blindly, never questioning, even when survival demands change? Or to adapt, to grow, to live when all else dies? If that is an insult, then humanity accepts it proudly." A hush spread across the court. Even those who despised him could not ignore the weight of his words. Kalyra's eyes narrowed. She would not let him sway her people. She raised her chin, her voice cutting through the silence. "You twist survival into virtue, but survival without order is nothing but madness. My people live by tradition, and tradition has kept us strong for millennia. What has your chaos given you? Daniel's voice softened, but it carried across the hall with clarity. It has given us families. It has given us love that does not wait for a season. It has given us children born not by the permission of the stars, but by the choice of the heart. That, princess, is our strength. The nobles shifted again. Some hissed, refusing to accept such words, but others leaned forward, eyes wide, as if hearing something new and dangerous and true. Kailira felt the shift. She felt her control slipping. Fury burned inside her, but another feeling crept in alongside it, something she could not name. She stepped closer to Daniel, so close that the air between them grew tense like a drawn bow. "Be careful, human," she whispered. "Your tongue is sharper than your body, but sharp tongues often get cut." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then let it be cut, but at least it will not stay silent." Her golden eyes locked into his, searching for fear. She found none, only a steady fire that unsettled her more than any insult could. The court grew restless. The tension was thick, heavy enough to choke the air. At last, Kailira raised her hand. "Enough words. Tonight, the cultural trial will begin, and when it ends, no one, not even you, will dare speak against the law of the stars." The nobles cheered, their voices rising like thunder once more. But Daniel stood calm, his eyes never leaving hers. And though the chamber roared with noise, his quiet words lingered like a shadow. "Or perhaps, princess, when it ends, you will finally see the truth." Her heart skipped a beat, though she masked it with a cold smile. For the first time, she wondered if the trial she had demanded might not only decide his fate, but hers as well. The cultural trial was held in the Great Hall of Echoes, a place where every word spoken bounced off the crystal walls and returned louder, sharper. The nobles gathered in their high seats, tails curling, eyes bright with hunger for a final verdict. Princess Kailira stood at the center, her robe shining like fire. She had demanded this trial to prove her authority, to silence the human once and for all. Yet, as she looked at him, standing calm and steady across the chamber, she felt something inside her she could not name. Daniel Reese did not look like a man about to be crushed by an empire. He stood straight, his dark eyes clear, his hands resting calmly behind his back. Where most challengers sweated under the weight of the court's gaze, he only seemed sharper, like iron tested by flame. Kailira raised her voice. "This trial will show if the human spirit has honor, or only chaos. He will face 3 questions of culture, and his answers will decide if he lives as envoy, or dies as a fraud." The nobles slammed their tails in agreement, the sound rumbling like storm clouds. Daniel nodded. "Ask your questions, princess. Truth fears nothing." Her golden eyes narrowed. His confidence unsettled her, but she pressed forward. She lifted her hand, her voice cold. "Among my people, loyalty to blood is law. If a child is weak, the family must sacrifice so that bloodline survives. Tell us, human, what does loyalty mean to your kind?" The hall grew quiet. Many nobles already sneered, expecting a foolish answer. Daniel spoke clearly, his words steady. "To us, loyalty is not to blood alone. It is to those who stand by us, even when they share no blood. A family can be built from choice, not only from birth." Gasps rippled across the chamber. Such an idea was unthinkable. Kailira tilted her head, studying him. "So you betray blood for strangers?" Daniel shook his head. "No. We honor blood, but we also honor bonds made by trust. If bloodline abandons us, what is left? Tradition without heart is an empty cage." The nobles argued loudly. Some called him mad, others murmured with interest. Kailira felt her chest tighten. His words had cut deeper than she wanted to admit. She straightened her shoulders. "Strength decides rule in my empire. The weak obey the strong, and the strong serve the stars. Tell us, human, what is strength to your people?" Daniel's eyes grew sharp. "Strength is not only muscle or claws. Strength is standing back up after you fall. It is protecting others even when you bleed. True strength is choosing mercy when hate would be easier." The chamber fell silent. Even the echo seemed to hold its breath. Kailira's heart skipped. Those words struck her deeper than she expected. She remembered nights as a child, standing alone in the shadow of the throne, forced to be strong or be broken. She pushed the memory away. Her voice came colder, harsher than before. Pretty words, human, but mercy has no place in survival. Daniel met her gaze. Then why does your heart tremble when you say that? Her breath caught. For a moment she could not move. The chamber erupted in gasps. Never had anyone dared to speak to her like that. Her pride burned. She would end this now. She stepped closer, her golden eyes blazing. Final question. Truth in my empire comes from the stars. It cannot be changed, cannot be challenged. What is truth to you, human? Daniel's voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall like thunder. Truth is not written in stars. Truth is written in hearts. Stars are distant, they burn, they die, they vanish. But a heart that speaks truth can change a world. That is what makes us human. The nobles burst into chaos. Some shouted for his death. Others demanded he be heard. The chamber shook with divided voices. Kalyra stood frozen. His words pierced through her armor of pride, reaching places she had long buried. For years she had hidden behind tradition, behind duty, behind the weight of the stars. But this human, this impossible man, had spoken to the part of her that longed for something more. The red light still glowed on the alien machines. The nobles whispered louder, their voices carrying through the royal chamber like waves. Some pointed at Daniel. Some laughed again. Others looked uneasy, as if the human's calmness was more dangerous than any failure. Princess Kalyra raised her hand, and the voices fell silent. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on Daniel, sharp as blades. "You speak with confidence, human," she said, her voice low and commanding. "But your words mean nothing here. In this empire, truth is not spoken, it is measured. Our laws were written by the stars, our traditions carried for thousands of years. No species escapes them. No one." She stepped forward, her robes flowing like water, her crown shining under the chamber lights. Every species has its season. It is the way of life. The time of growth, the time of rest, the time of union. When the cycle is right, we continue our bloodlines. When it is not, we wait. That is balance. That is honor. The nobles nodded, their tails tapping the marble floor in agreement. Their voices rose together in a chant of respect for their traditions. Kalyra's hand lifted high, commanding silence once more. "But humans," she continued, "you claim to escape this sacred law. You claim your bodies are free from the cycle. That is not strength, it is chaos." Gasps followed her words. To the nobles, chaos was the greatest insult. Disorder meant weakness, corruption, even death. Daniel stood still, his eyes on the princess. Her words cut through the air, but he did not look away. Finally he spoke, his voice steady and clear. On Earth, tradition was written by survival, not by the stars. We had no luxury to wait for the right season. Winter came, and if we were not ready, we died. Summer came, and if we were not strong, we starved. The only reason humans still exist is because we adapted. We did not wait for nature. We challenged it. The nobles stirred. Some hissed, others growled, their disbelief filling the chamber. One noble, tall and scarred, rose from his seat. His voice boomed. "To defy the cycles is blasphemy. You spit on order itself. How can your kind survive without structure?" Daniel turned his head toward him, calm as ever. "Because when everything tries to kill us, structure means nothing. Action means everything." The chamber grew restless again. Some nobles sneered, but others looked thoughtful. Doubt spread like cracks in stone. Kalyra's eyes narrowed. She saw the shift, and it unsettled her. She would not allow a human to shake the foundations of her people's belief. "You twist words, human," she said sharply. "But traditions are not stories. They are written in our blood. From the moment an alien is born, their body follows the rhythm of the stars. My people's cycle comes once every 2 years, for others every 3. For the lower beasts, once in a lifetime. But always there is a rhythm." She pointed toward him, her finger gleaming with jewels. "You dare stand here and tell me your kind has none, that you are free from the law of the universe?" Daniel's answer came without hesitation. "Yes." The word echoed through the chamber like a hammer striking stone. Gasps rose from every corner. Some nobles shouted in anger. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Kalyra's face hardened. Her voice was like fire now, hot and cutting. "Then you are abominations." The words struck the chamber like lightning. Silence followed. The nobles froze. None dared to repeat the princess's words, but the meaning burned in every heart. Daniel did not move. He did not flinch. Slowly he lifted his chin, his eyes steady. "Perhaps to you," he said softly, "but to us it is life. Without it, we would have been erased long before we left our world. Call us abominations if you wish, princess, but we are abominations who survive." The silence deepened. For the first time, some nobles lowered their heads, unsure what to think. Kalira's jaw tightened. She could feel the shift again, the seed of doubt spreading through her court. She would not lose control. She turned sharply to her scholars. "Prepare the deeper test," she commanded. "If the machines cannot see it, then we will strip the truth from his flesh itself. Let the galaxy witness. Let no one doubt the power of tradition." The scholars bowed, hurrying to ready their devices. Strange symbols lit the walls, and the floor shifted, revealing hidden machinery that hummed with ancient energy. Daniel watched, calm on the outside, but inside his thoughts raced. He had expected resistance, but not this fast, not this public. The princess was determined not only to prove him wrong, but to break him. And yet, as the chamber shook with power, he smiled, because he understood something Kalira did not. Her traditions were her cage, and cages could be broken. The nobles leaned forward in their seats. The air grew heavy with anticipation. The princess raised her hand once more. "Tonight," she declared, "we test the human beyond all doubt. His truth will be carved open for the stars to see." Her golden eyes burned with fire as they locked on Daniel, and when he fails, his people will crawl before us forever. Daniel's voice came quiet, but every ear caught it. "Or perhaps, princess, when I succeed, it will be you who kneels." The chamber shook with gasps. Even Kalira froze, her face caught between fury and disbelief, and in that moment, the entire empire leaned forward, waiting for the storm that was about to begin. The great chamber of the Zalari Empire trembled as hidden machines rose from beneath the marble floor. Rings of glowing metal unfolded like the petals of a flower, humming with strange energy. The air grew heavy, thick with power. Every noble leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide with excitement. This was no ordinary trial. This was a test written into the history of the empire, one used to expose frauds, spies, and liars. And today it would be used on a human. Daniel Reese stood calm at the center of the platform. His boots pressed against the shining floor as the rings surrounded him. Light from the machines bathed his body in red, green, and gold. To the nobles he looked like prey trapped in the jaws of a beast. From her throne, Princess Kalira raised her hand. At once silence filled the hall. "Begin," she commanded. The machines roared to life. Beams of energy scanned across Daniel, passing through his skin, his muscles, his blood. Strange alien symbols appeared in the air, floating like smoke. Scholars read them aloud, their voices echoing across the chamber. Heart rhythm steady. Lung capacity above standard. Genetic structure unusual. The nobles whispered at every word. Their golden eyes burned with curiosity, waiting for the truth that would destroy the humans' claims. Daniel did not move. His face remained calm, but inside his heart pounded like a drum. He could feel the heat of the beams pressing into his body, digging deeper than any scan he had faced before. These machines were not only searching his biology, they were searching his very identity. Kalira watched him closely, her golden eyes unblinking. Every breath he took, every flicker of his expression, she measured. She wanted to see fear. She wanted to see weakness. But all she saw was calm. "Read deeper," she ordered. The scholars obeyed. The machines pulsed brighter, and the floating symbols shifted rapidly. Reproductive cells, active. No dormant cycle detected. Activity, continuous. The last word hung in the air. Shock rippled through the court. Some nobles gasped. Others frowned, confused. Kalira leaned forward. "What does it mean?" One scholar hesitated before answering. His voice trembled. "It means the human shows no breeding cycle, no season, his kind. May truly be active year-round." The chamber exploded in noise. Some nobles shouted in disbelief. Others hissed in anger. A few looked frightened, as though this truth broke the laws of the universe. Kalira's jaw tightened. Her voice cut through the storm. Impossible. Check again. The machines roared louder, beams scanning deeper into Daniel's body. Symbols shifted, flashing faster and faster. Cells regenerating, a scholar read. No pause. No dormant period. Continuous fertility confirmed. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Kalira rose from her throne, her robes swirling like a storm. She stepped down toward the platform, her eyes burning with fury. "You think this proves strength?" she demanded. "It proves nothing. It proves chaos. It proves your kind has no order, no discipline. You are not chosen by the stars. You are mistakes of nature." Her words echoed across the hall. The nobles roared in agreement, some cheering her, some pounding their tails on the floor. The sound shook the walls, but Daniel finally moved. He lifted his head, his dark eyes locking onto the princess. His voice, steady and calm, carried through the storm. "Or perhaps, princess, it proves that humans were never meant to follow your stars. We follow our own path, and maybe that is why we are standing here, in your empire, instead of kneeling before it." The noise stopped. The nobles froze, stunned by his boldness. Kalira's eyes widened just for a heartbeat before narrowing again. She stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of the machines against her skin. Her voice dropped to a whisper meant only for him. "You are either the bravest creature I have ever seen, or the most foolish." Daniel did not blink. "Sometimes, princess, those are the same thing." Her lips twitched almost into a smile, but she forced it away. Turning sharply, she addressed her court. "Prepare the cultural trial," she declared. "If science alone cannot humble him, then tradition will. We will see if his spirit is as endless as his body." The nobles cheered wildly. Drums pounded in the corners of the chamber. The air shook with energy and fear. Daniel stood alone on the glowing platform. He had passed the first test, but he knew the worst was yet to come. As the machines shut down and the royal court of the Zalari Empire was silent. Thousands of glowing eyes stared at the tall human standing in the middle of the marble floor. Around him, alien nobles whispered in their strange musical voices. Some laughed softly, others sneered. To them, humans were new, untested, and weak. At the center throne sat Princess Kalira, the proud daughter of the emperor. Her long silver hair shimmered like fireflies, and her golden crown glowed under the chamber's light. She leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the human envoy. "You're lying," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "Humans cannot breed year-round. It is impossible. No species in the galaxy can. You insult our intelligence with this story." The court erupted in laughter. Dozens of alien nobles slapped their tails on the ground in mock applause. Their voices rose like thunder, mocking the human who had dared to speak. But the man did not flinch. His name was Daniel Reese, envoy of Earth, dressed in the black and silver uniform of the Terran Coalition. His dark eyes did not move from the princess. He stood calm, though his heart was beating like a drum. He had expected distrust. He had expected arrogance. But this was more than that. This was a public challenge, and the entire galaxy was watching. Kalira rose from her throne, her long robes trailing behind her. She pointed at him, her jeweled finger shaking with contempt. "If your claim is true, then prove it. Prove it here before the eyes of the Empire. Or admit your lie and crawl back to your world in shame." The laughter grew louder. Nobles chanted words Daniel could not understand, but the tone was clear. Humiliation, mockery, disbelief. Daniel's lips curved into a small smile. Not wide, not arrogant, but sharp enough to silence some of the crowd. His voice, steady and low, echoed across the chamber. "Your Highness," he said, "humans do not need to lie. We live as we are. Our strength is not in words, but in reality. And reality will not change just because you do not believe it." Gasps rippled through the crowd. No one spoke to the princess that way. No one. Kalira narrowed her eyes. For a moment, a flicker of interest appeared in them. Then it vanished, replaced by a storm. "You dare defy me?" she asked softly, though her voice cut sharper than a blade. Daniel met her gaze. "I dare to tell the truth." The silence was heavy now, pressing on every ear. Even the nobles stopped laughing. They had expected the human to bow, to stutter, to break under pressure. Instead, he stood taller. Kalira stepped down from the throne and walked toward him. Each step echoed like thunder. Her guards moved with her, their armor shining, their spears pointed. But she waved them back. This was her stage. She stopped only a breath away from Daniel. Her eyes, glowing gold, locked into his. Very well, human. You say your kind can breed year-round. Then prove it. I will summon my scholars, my healers, my machines. They will test you. They will expose you. Her lips curved into a cold smile. When you fail, your species will kneel to us forever. Daniel's heart pounded harder. He knew this was more than a question of biology. This was about pride, about survival. If he failed, humanity's reputation across the stars would collapse. They would be branded as liars, mocked, perhaps enslaved. But instead of fear, he let out a soft chuckle. "Princess," he said, "be careful what you ask for. The truth can be heavier than you expect." The chamber erupted again, but this time the laughter was mixed with murmurs. Some aliens looked uneasy. Some shifted in their seats. For the first time, doubt entered the crowd. Kalira tilted her head, studying him. Something about this human unsettled her. He was supposed to be afraid. He was supposed to tremble. Instead, he looked at her as though she were just another obstacle, not an untouchable royal. Her pride burned. "Very well," she declared, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Tomorrow the test begins, and when the galaxy sees your failure, no one will ever take humans seriously again." She turned, her robes sweeping the floor, and walked back to her throne. The nobles cheered, their voices rising like a storm. Daniel stood alone in the middle of the floor. He did not move, did not bow, did not show fear. His eyes followed the princess, and a thought burned in his mind. She thinks this is her game, but she has no idea what humanity truly is. The court's laughter thundered in his ears, but Daniel only smiled, because deep inside, he already knew. This was the beginning of something far greater than a simple test. The next morning, the royal court was filled again. The great marble chamber glowed with silver light as alien nobles gathered from across the empire. Word had spread fast. Today, the human would answer the princess's challenge. Whispers floated through the air like smoke. Humans are fools. He will break. Why would he agree to this? The nobles laughed, their tails beating against the floor in rhythm. To them, this was already decided. The human would fail, and his shame would echo across the stars. At the center of the hall stood Daniel Reese. His black Terran uniform was sharp and clean, but his face carried no sign of fear. His back was straight, his eyes steady. He looked less like a man facing humiliation and more like a man preparing for war. The great doors opened, and Princess Kalira entered. Her robes shimmered with silver threads, and her crown burned like sunlight. Behind her marched a procession of alien scholars and healers, carrying glowing instruments that pulsed with strange light. The nobles rose to their feet and bowed, but Daniel did not move. He stood still, his gaze locked on the princess, Kalira noticed. Her lips curled slightly, not in kindness but in challenge. She descended the steps slowly, every motion graceful, her presence demanding attention. When she reached the floor, she raised her voice so all could hear. "Human," she said, "last night you dared to defy me. You claimed your kind can breed without season, without limits, unlike all noble species of the galaxy." She spread her arms wide, letting her robe fall around her like wings. "Today, you will prove this, or your people will carry the mark of liars forever." The chamber roared with approval. The nobles banged their staffs and tails against the floor until the sound shook the walls. Daniel waited for the noise to fade. Then he stepped forward. His voice was calm, yet it carried through the hall. "Your Highness, I accepted your challenge because I have nothing to fear. Humans do not hide from truth. You believe we lie, but I tell you, our strength is in our nature. We are not bound by seasons. Our lives, our families, our future, it flows year-round." Some nobles scoffed, others hissed in disbelief. A tall alien noble shouted from the side, "Blasphemy!" The stars gave us cycles for order. No creature escapes the laws of time. Daniel turned his head toward the voice, his expression firm. "On Earth, survival demanded more from us. We lived through burning summers and freezing winters. We faced hunger, storms, and beasts larger than us. If we were bound by season, we would have died long ago. Year-round strength is not a lie. It is the reason we are here today. The court grew restless. Some shook their heads. Others whispered nervously. They had never heard a human speak with such steady fire. Kaylara's golden eyes narrowed. You sound confident. Too confident. But words will not save you. Daniel gave a small smile, tilting his head. Then let the proof speak louder than my words. The princess gestured to her scholars. At once they brought forward their glowing machines. Strange arms unfolded, humming with alien power. Lights flashed, scanning the air with a sharp buzz. Daniel did not move. He stood still as the machines surrounded him, their lights dancing across his body. The nobles leaned forward, eager to see the results. One scholar whispered numbers, another scribbled on a tablet. The murmurs grew louder. Kalyra raised her chin. The truth is about to be revealed. Daniel's heart beat fast inside his chest, but he kept his face calm. This was no longer just about him. Billions of humans on Earth and across colonies depended on this moment. If he failed, all of them would carry shame. If he succeeded, no one would ever mock them again. The machines pulsed, and suddenly a red light flashed across the chamber. The nobles gasped. A wave of laughter followed. Red means failure, someone shouted. Human lies exposed, cried another. Kalyra's smile returned, sharp and satisfied. She stepped closer to him, her voice dripping with triumph. You see, even your own body betrays you. You are not what you claim. Admit defeat. The crowd erupted in laughter once more, their voices echoing like thunder, but Daniel did not move. He did not bow his head. Instead, he laughed softly. Just one short laugh, but it cut through the noise like a blade. The chamber fell quiet. Even Kalyra frowned. Why do you laugh, human? She demanded. Daniel's eyes met hers, unshaken. Because your machine reads only what it understands. But humans are not built by your logic. If you think this red light means weakness, then you will soon learn how wrong you are. The court went silent again. Confusion rippled across the nobles. Some glanced at each other. Others frowned at the scholars, demanding answers. Kalyra's smile faded. For the first time, she felt a flicker of unease. Daniel stepped forward, closer to her, his voice steady. You wanted proof, princess? Then watch carefully, because this is only the beginning. The chamber, filled with thousands of alien eyes, waited. Suspense hung like a storm cloud ready to break. And for the first time, Kalyra wondered if she had underestimated the human standing before her.